Today we're going to unpack why people find it so hard to run slow. I'm Lindsey Parry from CoachParry.com, where we help you become fitter, faster, stronger. At CoachParry.com, we really are strong proponents of making sure that when you need to do your easy runs and long runs, that you do those easy enough. One of the pushbacks we get when people start to run slow enough is that they comment that they feel much more tired when they run too slowly. And that's largely got to do with the fact that in the beginning, whenever you do something new, you're very focused on task and very aware of everything and how you're feeling. So that physical effort to maintain where you are does lead you to a little bit of mental fatigue, which in turn feeds into your physical fatigue. And so you do, in the initial stages of running like this, feel a little bit more tired sometimes. And the important thing here is that if you just learn to run at the right effort and the right speed, then in the short term, we're talking a couple of days sometimes, at most a week or two, you will start to feel more comfortable at that pace. You'll start thinking less about the running, and that sense of feeling more tired will go away. In reality, if you were told to run twice as far as you've ever run before, you'd intrinsically know that you have to start out much slower. And if you didn't start out much slower, it would compromise your ability to finish what you set out to do. Now, if it was true that running slower was genuinely making you more tired, then the slower you started when you were trying to run that double distance, the less likely you would be to getting to the end. So we also know logically that it's actually not possible that we are genuinely physically more tired from running slower, because we are expending less energy, but we are also expending more mental energy. And so just persevere with it for a couple of runs, and it will get better.
So we've spoken a little bit around the physical aspects as to why it's so hard to run slow. Another aspect is obviously your mental aspects and how you might struggle to run slow. And the reason is because you want to get faster in running, you think that we have to be running everything fast as well. And so when we're advising people to run their easy and their long runs a little bit slower, people automatically jump to, okay, well, how am I going to get faster if I'm running everything slow? They automatically assume we're saying that you must run everything slow. And that is not what we're saying. We're suggesting that you run your easy and your long runs a little bit slower, and then you can run your fast runs, your intensity runs, your speed sessions a little bit faster. And so there is always going to be that disparity or that balance between the two. The easy and long runs are there to build your aerobic engine. Okay, it's to really get that engine going. I often use this sort of analogy. I mean, I'm not much of a mechanic, but you essentially have to build your engine before you can tap into the turbo. You can't have a car with just a turbo. It has to have an engine. And the easy and the long runs are there to build that engine. And then every now and then we tap into that turbo to get us a little bit faster. And so that ratio of easy long runs to speed or faster runs is really, really key. And so what we often find with recreational runners is that they're running their easy and their long runs a little bit too fast, on the fast end of that zone. And so they're landing on this top end of that zone, but then they're running their fast runs and they're not recovered enough. They don't have the capacity to do that. So they're running their faster or their intensity runs a little bit too slow. And so you can see that sort of gap isn't that wide. What we're looking for is that you would be running your easy and your long runs much slower, which would then give you the capacity, and you wouldn't be as fatigued to then go and run your fast runs that much faster. And that is one of the things that the elites do so well, that allows them to really get nice and fast, because they've built their engine with their aerobic runs, with their easy and slow runs or long runs, and then they really tap into that higher intensity work at the capacity that is required.
Another key pushback we get from people is that it feels uncomfortable and or sore when I'm forced to run much slower. And that really boils down to the fact that a lot of people struggle to make the small tweaks in biomechanics that you need to make to be able to run well and comfortably when you're running slower. We actually did a video on biomechanics and what you should be focusing on when you're running, so you can click on the video on screen now. But in a nutshell, the two most important aspects when it comes to running slower and maintaining the same running form are being able to adjust stride length and stride frequency. Both of those will change in response to how fast we are running. But a lot of people get stuck in either a cadence or at a stride length, and a lot of runners struggle with the adjustment of the stride length, particularly once we get, so you fine up to a certain point and you can increase when you need to run faster, but a lot of people can't decrease stride length enough as they get slow. And what that essentially means that when you're running very slowly, you're overstriding because your stride length isn't short enough, and therefore you're no longer landing your foot close to or underneath your body, and your foot's coming down in front of your body and forcing you to a heel strike. So that isn't a perceived feeling of discomfort and sometimes soreness. It's a real feeling of discomfort and soreness. But in response to running slow, we must run with a small stride length. I'm often intrigued watching elite athletes train, and I know they are different to us mere mortals, but particularly in the cool down after a hard workout, elite athletes sometimes run so slowly that their stride length is so short that their feet are actually almost overlapping. So there isn't a gap between their feet when they're running. When they run, their stride length is so short that this is the range in which their feet move. It's quite interesting to watch. I mean, they probably could walk faster than they are jogging, and it almost looks like they're running on the spot. It just does highlight for me that the slower you run, the smaller your stride length must be. And if you do that, that's going to make sure that you're still landing on your whole foot, not landing on your heel. That's going to increase the comfort factor of your run. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to see how the easy and long runs fit into the whole scheme of things, you can click on the video on screen now, and don't forget to hit the like button.